For those unaware, Dragon Ball is a really big franchise. Like, really big franchise. With hundreds of anime episodes, movies in the double digits, and countless video games, Dragon Ball and its vast amount of stories span over a wide array of forms of media. With this comes a variety of colorful characters to tell these stories, and although many of them are awesome, it's clear that not all of them are created equally. Some characters get more appreciation than others from both a story and meta standpoint. This video is going to go over 3 characters from the broader Dragon Ball verse that I believe are underrated by either the story they originate from or the Dragon Ball community. We'll go over their appearance, personalities, moveset, fun facts, and finally, what I enjoy from the character and why I believe they're underrated. Our first character of the video is my goat, Turles. Right off the bat, someone would notice how Turles looks just like Goku. Their hairstyles are nearly identical and the two have similar builds. Turles has a gray hue to his skin tone and rocks what seems to be more typical Saiyan armor. His armor is a combination of blue and gray colors. Turles has a tail wrapped around his waist and sometimes rocks a scouter. At the beginning of the film he's introduced and he has an awesome white cloak. Personality-wise, Turles is the gentlemanly type who's rather blunt and cunning with his opponents. Ability-wise, Turles doesn't have that many unique abilities in terms of something predicated to him. He does, however, have unique displays of power in regards to his ki control and strength. We see Turles unleash powerful ki blasts that take their own look as compared to other characters. Within Movie 3, Turles is also seen to be incredibly durable as he takes a lot of punishment from the Z Fighters. Given that he's a Saiyan with the tail, we know that he's capable of utilizing the giant ape form. He also has the ability to create an artificial moon like Vegeta. Now moving on to history, Turles is the main antagonist of Dragon Ball Z Movie 3, The Tree of Might. In the film, he and his fellow destroyers invade the Earth and end up planting the seeds for the botanical body in question. The Tree of Might feeds on the energy of a planet to produce a fruit that when eaten can give a person ultimate power. Given that it feeds on such energy, the planet where the tree is being grown is destined to be destroyed. Turles is the leader of a group that goes from planet to planet, grows the mighty tree, and eats the fruit it bears. Of course, he decides to go to Earth, and of course he gets stopped by Goku and the Z Fighters. This is not before he displays utter dominance upon them. His Turles Corps managed to take care of the lower level Z Fighters, while Turles himself uses Gohan to take care of Goku. To pull this off, he ends up creating an artificial moon to force Gohan to go into Giant Ape and fight his father. After Gohan calms down, Turles combats and conquers both Piccolo and Goku, the former of which rather effortlessly. While fighting Goku, we see him put up a good fight, but Turles manages to lure him to the tree where he can dine on the fruit of the Tree of Might. After this, Goku has no chance as Turles puts the hurt on him. This causes Goku to resort to the Spirit Bomb, which Turles actually survives. Goku then tries the Spirit Bomb again, but this time he decides to absorb the life energy of the Tree of Might itself to beat his doppelganger. As for trivia, we obviously have to mention that Turles looks like Goku. He's the original evil Goku. He seems to be some version of Goku who never hit his head. This is something that's actually mentioned within the film. Another similarity between the two are their status as low-class warriors. To me, the most interesting connection between these characters is that both of them have the same voice actress in the original Japanese dub, being Masako Nozawa. Turles is also an example of why she's a goated voice actress, as you can clearly tell who she's talking as when these two characters are interacting, because her tone and pitch changes whether or not she's speaking as Turles or Goku. Next up, is Turles Goku's brother? So this was something I did not know until researching for this video. Apparently, in some supplemental material around the time Dragon Ball Z Movie 3 came out, Turles is described as being Goku's brother. There's also several dubs of the film that relay this fact as well. Although this is the case, by the time Dragon Ball Z Movie 7 came around, this seemed to be debunked, as we see a nifty family tree clearly indicating that Turles is not a part of Bardock's lineage. Moving on to something that I believe is worth mentioning is the fact that Turles never goes Super Saiyan. I find this interesting given the numerous power-ups he does receive from supplemental material. As we're about to go over, Turles gets numerous unique buffs and forms from his initial base form. There's also other characters who get additional Super Saiyan transformations from the same supplemental material who did not already have these forms. For whatever reason, there seems to be a conscious effort to block Turles from having this form. If I had to guess, it's probably because his Super Saiyan form would look similar to that of both Bardock and Goku, meaning that there would be 3 Dragon Ball characters with very similar designs with hair color and aura. And now, I want to talk about Turles' involvement in 2 of the Dragon Ball video games. The first is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, and the second is, of course, the promotional Super Dragon Ball Heroes anime/manga. To start with the Xenoverse, Turles actually has some big notable moments within Xenoverse 2's story. We see that he and Lord Slug act as the preliminary antagonists, mucking stuff up throughout timelines on the behalf of Toa. The duo appear within the Saiyan Saga and the Namek Saga, the former of which they are promptly defeated by the protagonist. Personality-wise, Turles seems to be mostly the same from movie 3. His goal is to follow Toa's orders so he can reach his goal of conquering the universe. He and Slug both dine on the fruit of the Tree of Might, where we inevitably see it resulting in both characters going berserk as Toa taints the fruit to give them more power. And now, we're at my favorite depiction of Turles. That's right, you heard me. My favorite depiction of Turles is in Super Dragon Ball Heroes. In Heroes, Turles isn't much at first. If you've seen my androids video, then you'll remember how I talked about how there was a Xeno cell from an alternate reality, and then the return of our main antagonist cell. They do almost the exact same thing with Turles, where there is a Xeno Turles who gets a Dark Dragon Ball and is promptly defeated. After this, they decided to bring back main antagonist Turles in the Big Bang mission. Similar to his role in Xenoverse, he's usually seen teaming up with other villains. First is Bojack, where his amped self fights Blue Goku and Blue Vegeta. Within the lore, Bojack explains how the two of them were saved by the evil time bird, Doji Doji, right before their deaths. Later in the story, he teams up with Cumber, where we see him be a part of an admittedly cool story. Here, there is a pseudo-universe where old Heroes main antagonist Cumber and Turles are fighting Vegeta. We see that Turles has a power-up that makes his hair look similar to Cumber, as the two of them spout how evilness is the true nature of the Saiyans. They try to use their dark power to corrupt Vegeta, who then conquers this power and makes it his own, showing the two evildoers that a Saiyan's true power stems from them sticking to their convictions and pride. Interestingly, Vegeta states that Turles represents a past version of himself, believing that evil and wickedness is what it meant to be a Saiyan. Surprisingly, as compared to both of these characters getting defeated and never showing back up, this actually has a lasting impact on both Turles and Cumber. We see Cumber for the first time be appreciative of other characters. Turles initially believes that his defeat was because he was a low-class warrior, but Vegeta tells him that he just needs to fight for his own pride. Turles then ends up sacrificing himself so Vegeta, Goku, Cumber, and Hearts can escape the Crimson Masked Saiyan. Hey guys, post-editing Tough Man here. I'm just about done editing the video, and I realized that I actually forgot to mention Turles' contributions in the Ultra God mission. So Turles, similar to Hearts, as we'll get into, does come back, and he is part of Team 5. And he takes a more rival role as compared to a full-blown main antagonist role. He also fights Super Saiyan 3 Raditz, and I feel like I couldn't not mention that because, you have Goku's actual brother and Goku's fake brother, having the showdown. And we also see that he and Vegeta have a rematch, and this does get interrupted by Majin Buu, I believe. Just wanted to mention it because it is obviously a rather important contribution that Turles makes that I somehow forgot about. Thanks for watching, guys. So, why do I think Turles is an underrated character? Well, there are actually two reasons why I love Turles so much. The first is his performance throughout the Tree of Might, as well as my love for the movie itself. Dragon Ball Z Movie 3 is an incredibly underrated film that takes advantage of everything to love from early Dragon Ball Z. The fights are much more choreographed as compared to flying and punching and flashing like more modern fights. The cinematography of the movie is also pure Kino, with there being excellent shots of both the tree, but also the world as it crumbles around it. But this isn't a review of the Tree of Might. This is why I believe Turles is an underrated character. Pretty much all of it comes down to his charisma and his interactions and domination of the Z-Fighters. Him taking advantage of Gohan's Great Ape is an awesome and messed up way to get under Goku's skin. This combined with his domination of Piccolo that involved straight up tanking a special beam cannon sets up Turles to be a formidable foe for Goku. Speaking of which, bro shits on Goku throughout most of the film and even manages to best a Spirit Bomb. This is before the end of the movie, which involved him and Goku having the Dragon Ball equivalent of a Western standoff as the two of them bask in the moment of silence before quickly drawing their techniques, with Goku coming out on top. The other reason why I believe Turles is an underrated gem is the mystique surrounding his backstory. Given that he's a low-class Saiyan, we know that he somehow managed to flee the destruction of planet Vegeta. The circumstances regarding this, though, are unknown. Who are his parents? Was he sent away as a child like Goku? Was he left to die? What are his thoughts about being a low-class warrior? He seems to care about it much more than Goku. Does he have a disdain for Frieza, or does he not care that his people came to such an end? None of these concepts are explored throughout the movie in which he debuts, but given his wonderful performance, instead of being upset that none of that was touched on, I'm left interested to know his backstory. It's also because of this that we see further exploration of this character in supplemental material like Xenoverse and Heroes, the latter of which I believe tackle his character really well when put in contrast to both Cumber and Vegeta. But that's enough Saiyan talk for this video. Let's move on to our second character, the King of the Demon Realm, Dabura. Dabura has a rather intimidating design, being a tall demon with a pink hue to his skin. He wears a blue getup that seems almost like a robe, at least I think it is, that has pants and drapes over his shoulders. He also wears a white cape. He has big pointy ears and has rather sharp features with a big widow's peak and a goatee. He also has horns poking out of the top of his head. On his forehead is the Majin insignia. His eyes are yellow and his pupils are almost snake-like. Dabura is a villainous character and is subservient to his master, Babidi. As for abilities, we see that Dabura has powerful ki blasts. Although this isn't special, we see his blasts have a unique look to them, almost looking like molten rock. I believe that Dabura's most known technique is his petrifying spit, in which he turns someone into stone. This technique is undone by Dabura himself or when he dies. Finally, Dabura is one of the rare weapon users in Dragon Ball, and we see that he is capable of summoning these weapons, and he usually rocks a sword or a spear. Dabura has a rather brief history within the main continuity of Dragon Ball. In the beginning of the Buu saga, he can be seen being Babidi's main lackey. Due to the Supreme Kai hyping him up, the implication is that Dabura is quite an intimidating villain. This gets semi-confirmed when he turns both Piccolo and Krillin into statues through his petrification spit. It's revealed that he is the king of the demon realm, and it's up to him and Babidi's other minions to take care of the Z-Fighters. Interestingly, Dabura is revealed to be as strong as Cell. Due to a match of rock, paper, scissors, Gohan is the one who ends up fighting Dabura, and we see that Gohan is quite rusty as he has some difficulty defeating the Demon Lord, something that he should have been able to do effortlessly if he kept up with his training. This is commented on by both Goku and Vegeta. While this is happening, Goku and Vegeta start their fight. Because of this, Buu ends up being released where he effortlessly defeats Gohan. Afterwards, Dabura tries talking to Buu where Buu negs him. Dabura then tells Babidi that maybe it was a bad idea to release an immortal, invincible, defiant blob monster and tries defeating Buu himself. This obviously backfires as we see Buu turn him into a cookie and eat him. In Dragon Ball Super, we see future Dabura and Babidi get defeated by future Trunks. In the anime, we learn that Supreme Kai died and Trunks uses a technique to deflect Dabura's spit before defeating the duo. In the manga, we see an extended training scene where Trunks trains with the Z-Sword. He and Dabura also have a cool little sword fight where the Z-Sword gets destroyed. Dabura also kills Kibito while Babidi kills Shin. The death of these two pushes Trunks to go Super Saiyan 2 and defeat Dabura and Babidi before Buu is released. Toyotaro also explains that with the destruction of the Z-Sword, the Elder Kai died. Dabura's last appearance in the main continuity is a brief cameo on the Dragon Ball Super Forest of Terror mini-arc where we see a mirage of him torturing Krillin, just like a lot of the other Dragon Ball Z antagonists. Something I'm sure most Dragon Ball fans know is that Dabura has a clear role in the narrative within the Buu saga, that being the establishment of power creep between the Cell and Buu sagas. Dabura is stated to be as strong as Cell when the Z-Fighters meet him, and is by proxy, his fight with Gohan tells us that Gohan has been slacking and has gotten weaker than his younger adolescent Super Saiyan 2 self. So to then see Dabura get negged by Buu tells the viewer that Buu isn't an intimidating threat given that he would neg Cell, as who we know was the last wall that needed to be surpassed by our protagonists. A fact that I want to highlight is that Dabura seems to be quite the insightful character. A detail I completely forgot about was that Dabura was actually the one who suggested to Babidi that he should possess Vegeta. Dabura does this after he sees Vegeta argue with Goku and Gohan. Furthermore, we see Dabura predict the future as he knows that Babidi will lose control of Buu, which would ultimately lead to his own end. A rather funny fact about Dabura is that after his death, King Yama sends him to heaven as compared to hell. Yama explains that this is because Dabura would have too good of a time in hell, and thus it would not be a worthy punishment for him. We actually see this get explored in some Dragon Ball Z filler, where Dabura has a good time with Bulma, Chi-Chi, and Videl, where the four of them search for Gohan before they know he's alive. You'll also notice that in these scenes, the M on his forehead is gone, indicating that he is no longer under the control of Babidi. Similar to Turles, let's talk about Dabura's role in Xenoverse and Super Dragon Ball Heroes. Firstly, I gotta establish that both game series have the character Toa, who is actually revealed to be Dabura's sister. Much of her motivation involves her reviving the Demon Realm. After her defeat in Xenoverse 2, we actually see that Dabura has a vendetta against the Time Patrol, where he ends up running amok across time. He gets caught by Vegito and is then intervened by the protagonist. Dabura is meddling to give more power to Fu, who would be his nephew, as Dabura believes that Fu would use his power to revive the Demon Realm. Fu has other plans though, as he ends up putting a temporary stop to Dabura's scheme by deflecting his petrifying spit back on him. This doesn't last though, as Dabura ends up undoing it and continues to mess with history. This then comes to a climactic conclusion that involves Kid Buu fighting Ultra Instinct Omen Goku, where Goku Kamehamehas both Kid Buu and Dabura. Dabura in Heroes seems to have a much more minor role as he is working alongside Demon Lord Mecha to revive the Demon Realm. He does have a new design sporting red pants and a red skin-tight shirt. On his chest is a black design and he has black tones under his eyes. His cape turns black and his horns also turn black and are much more exaggerated. He ends up getting absorbed by Kid Buu, who's being amped by the Dark Dragon Ball. This version of Buu ends up becoming Demon Lord Kid Buu, who fights Xeno Vegeta, who is making his debut in the Dragon Ball Heroes series. Buu manages to get away and also ends up absorbing Janemba from a different time space. Buu is defeated by the Demon Salsa, who removes the Dark Dragon Balls and Dabura from Buu's body. Throughout the rest of the Dark Demon Realm mission arc, Dabura is seen fighting alongside the other demons for Lord Mecha until the Lord absorbs them all into his time power, thus marking the end of his main contributions in Super Dragon Ball Heroes. Now, I'm sure you guys are probably much more confused about the inclusion of this character as compared to Turles, as Dabura I feel like overall has much less impact on the story, and in the main continuity does almost nothing. So, why do I believe that Dabura is underrated by the Dragon Ball fandom? The answer is quite simple. I just think he's pretty neat conceptually. I think having this character represent another world of Dragon Ball, both figuratively and literally, is really cool. His design is rather eye-catching and unique when compared to more modern Dragon Ball characters, but no one really talks about Dabura given his limited contribution to the main story. However, I know I can't be alone in these feelings, as Super Dragon Ball Heroes exists, where it seems they took these limited bits of lore we received in the Buu Saga and decided to make a total of 3 different supplemental stories centered around it, that being Heroes, Dragon Ball Online, and Dragon Ball Xenoverse, which all feature Dabura's sister, Toa. I also find that within his limited appearance, Dabura is just a fun character. He's a rather intimidating villain, and we see him put the hurt on Gohan. His moveset is quite unique as well, with the Petrification Spit and the summoning of weapons. Finally, although I believe that Dabura was underrated and could have had a wider role in Dragon Ball, the purpose he does fulfill is rather cut and dry, and represents a masterful moment about how to use power scaling effectively within a story. And now we're on our last character of this video, the God Slayer, and the Super Dragon Ball Heroes exclusive, Hearts. Appearance-wise, Hearts rivals Android 17 as one of the swaggiest characters in all of Dragon Ball. He wears red baggy pants with big black boots that curl red at the toe. He has a golden belt and wears no shirt. Across his torso is a giant scar that makes an X. Draped over him is a giant black and yellow fur coat. He wears red gloves and has a golden visor covering his eyes. He has pointy ears, and at first he has slick back blonde hair. Hearts has a cunning and smug personality, with him being relatively open on his goals and plans with the Z-Fighters. Hearts has a shit ton of abilities, many of which are ones that are seemingly original to him from the Dragon Ball mythos. The first I'm going to cover are his mind reading and gravity manipulation, the latter of which is incredibly powerful as we see him put down Goku and even Jiren. Next up are his cubes. Hearts has a gimmick where he sends out flying cubes that can attack and entrap other people. Hearts also has Ki Blast manipulation. Not manipulation in that he can fire Ki Blasts, but we see him manipulate the Ki Blasts of other people as he manipulates Goku's own Ki Blasts and sends them flying back at him. I think it's possible that both this and his cubes are sub-abilities stemming from his gravity manipulation. Hearts also has different transformations. There's his base form and also Super Hearts, which seems to be almost like a Super Saiyan transformation for him. Super Hearts looks real similar to his base form, except his hair is spiked up, and it looks like he has some sleeves attached to his arms as he takes off his coat. Finally, there's Ultimate Hearts, or as I like to call him, God Slayer Hearts. God Slayer Hearts radiates a golden aura and has some spikes protruding from his back that almost resemble Omega Shenron. Surrounding him are green orbs that levitate around his body. As Ultimate Hearts, we see him pull off an attack called the Gravity Finale, which seems to be him sending a big meteor towards our protagonists. As I briefly mentioned at the beginning of this section, Hearts is a hero's original character. His addition to the wider Dragon Ball mythos is much later than Turles and Dabura. He debuts in what I believe is the third hero saga, depending on what you're looking at, being the Universal Conflict saga as the main antagonist. Hearts' main goal is to slay the Omni King as well as the many gods within the Dragon Ball mythos. To do so, he and his gang, who consist of slayed or rejected characters throughout history, plan to utilize the power of something called the Universe Seed to give Hearts the power to defeat the Xeno Fighters and the Omni King. Something to note with Hearts' gang is that all of them are Dragon Ball Heroes original characters with the exception of one, fused Zamasu. Hearts' plan is to wreak havoc across the 12 universes so that he can charge the Universe Seed. Within the Universal Conflict arc, we see a bunch of characters fighting across the universe, which actually marks the return of characters like Hit, Kale and Caulifla, and Jiren. Hearts doesn't do much fighting himself at the beginning of the arc and lets his gang run rampant. About through the halfway point, we see him fight the Z-Fighters in one of the prettiest animation sequences from modern Dragon Ball. Here, he doesn't quite defeat the Z-Fighters and manages to absorb the Universe Seed, transforming into Godslayer Hearts. Godslayer Hearts chads his way onto the scene by killing the immortal fused Zamasu. Hearts then has a climactic battle with Blue Gogeta, Hit, and Jiren, with his last words being that he only wanted to free everyone from their lack of autonomy. Super Dragon Ball Heroes was cooking though, as they decided to bring back this epic character for the Big Bang mission and the Ultra God mission. In both arcs, he acts as a helping hand to our protagonists. He also has a design change as his hair looks much shaggier and he seems to almost be wearing an inmate costume as if he belonged to a prison. In the Big Bang mission, he fights alongside Goku against Frieza and Cooler and helps him and Vegeta escape from the Crimson Masked Saiyan. In the Ultra God mission, he's part of Team 5, who helps the Xenofighters unravel Lady Eros' plot. He has much more of a background role here, but he's pretty cool nonetheless. So for Hearts, I only have one trivia fact, but trust me, it's quality over quantity, as it may be the greatest trivia fact I've ever covered in any of my videos. Hearts is voiced by a man named Takahito Koyasu, and I probably butchered that pronunciation, but just bear with me here. Now this guy also voices Dio Brando from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And something that I didn't know until researching this video is that he also voices Toji Fushiguro from Jujutsu Kaisen. Now someone needs to get this guy a gold medal because he's just like the GOAT of voicing antagonists in anime. After making your day with that fact, let's get into why I believe Hearts is an underrated character. Now, there are many reasons for this. I think his design and demeanor are both awesome, and he plays off of our protagonists incredibly well. His design is incredibly unique for Dragon Ball, yet he still feels like he's part of the verse. His moveset is also some of the most unique and versatile that we've seen from modern Dragon Ball. Something that I really like is the last line from Hearts, which seems to indicate that he had a noble goal in his misdeeds, and unlike other characters who appear to have similar starts to their villainous motives, they actually commit to this with Hearts. After his initial defeat, instead of having this personal and petty vendetta against the Xenofighters, he actually joins them in their goals, as he knows that ending them would contradict his own morals, being that he wants to fight for the autonomy of mortals. I'm also going to give an incredibly hot take for this video. Hearts would have been a better antagonist for Dragon Ball Super than most of the actual main villains from Super. Before you guys write your comments calling me a dum-dum, let me give my reasons. To do that, let's start talking about an actual Dragon Ball Super antagonist, Zamasu. Zamasu and Hearts seemingly have the exact same motivations and plans, with the exception of being the target of their plans. While Zamasu wants to kill all the mortals, Hearts wants to kill off the gods. I find that this motivation could have been perfectly utilized within the Dragon Ball series about godhood, as compared to some of the weaker sagas that actually made it into the sequel series. And this part's not scripted, but to kind of ramble real quick, I think Jiren's an okay wall, but I think his character doesn't relate too much to godhood, besides being the mortal who surpassed the gods. And then also, what does Frieza have to do with the overarching themes of godhood in Dragon Ball Super? Literally nothing, at least in his debut in Resurrection F. Obviously, we can talk about, Frieza and the Tournament of Power, and it seems Black Frieza is going to have much more relevance, but I think Hearts would have been a much more fitting villain thematically for Dragon Ball Super than, say, Frieza and Jiren, maybe even Hit, you could argue. And that's why I find Hearts to be a rather underrated character. Also, his OST in Dokkan goes really hard, and you can at me, it will be used in this video. So in this video, we took a look at 3 Dragon Ball Z characters that I believe are underrated by the broader community. These 3 included one from early Dragon Ball Z, who I believe is underappreciated, one from late Dragon Ball Z, who served a rather clear role in the main continuity, and one from the modern era of Dragon Ball, which has a unique presence and moveset. All 3 of these characters are antagonists who mainly get their time to shine in supplemental Dragon Ball material. I hope you guys learned something interesting or have a better appreciation for these characters. I want to end this video by announcing that I want to do some more videos like this in the future, but I also want to make this interactive with you guys, my awesome viewers. So if you're interested, comment below characters that you believe are underrated or underappreciated from Dragon Ball, and the 3 characters with the most likes or comments will be the ones I cover in the next part of this. And finally, I want to say that I'm very appreciative of everyone who tunes in to my videos, regardless if they subscribe or not, but YouTube has told me that a lot of my viewers watch my content but don't subscribe. Now, I typically find it odd and sometimes corny when creators ask people to subscribe to their YouTube channels and their videos, but I think I found a way to ask nicely without abandoning my sense of dignity. So right now, I'm going to ask you guys politely to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Here we go. Please, 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 please. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day.